You wake to a sound that isn't sound, a low, precise humming behind your ribs, as if the universe is tuning itself to hear you. You don't need to search for meaning. This message found you. It threaded through the static of your days and landed inside the soft, secret place where your attention lingers. Right now, something in the quantum field recognizes you not by your resume, not by your stories, but by the frequency you are carrying. Only a few can perceive this transmission. You are one of them. There's a familiarity to the feeling, a call that feels like home and a warning at once. Your inner observer, that quiet note of awareness, has been looping, checking the same corridor of memory and seeing the same faces, the same closed doors. This is the observer loop speaking. It has been marking the edges of your life, pointing to patterns, to the moments when time felt like it folded strangely around you. Those foldings were not accidents. They were gentle probes, calibrations from the field, testing whether your resonance could be sustained at a higher pitch. Listen, the world you move through hums with morphic resonance. There are invisible scaffolds of information that remember how consciousness once behaved. You have brushed against these scaffolds more times than you can name. Synchronicity is no longer a polite coincidence for you, it's a language. Random meetings, recurring symbols, the sudden, inexplicable clarity at 3 in the morning. Those are signals that your system is being scanned for coherence. Coherence is the key. When your internal rhythm aligns, your personal field begins to act like a tuned instrument. Entanglement stops being a distant theory and becomes a lived reality. Your choices ripple, and other systems, people, places, subtle networks move because you moved. The universe, at the micro level, notices when you stop resisting your edges. The observer in you shifts from passive witness to active attunement. That shift is the doorway. You have likely felt pressure, a kind of gentle, persistent squeeze at the base of your skull or behind your sternum, as if something within your biology is preparing to recompose itself. Call it DNA restructuring if you must. Call it the body's way of aligning to a new protocol. These aren't metaphors only. They are metaphors that point to a real, embodied process. The architecture of your future self assembling inside the present you. Think of it as a soft phase transition, not violent, but inevitable. Heat rises, patterns reorder. Don't be surprised if your dreams begin to speak in equations and symbols, if memory loosens and leaves secret doorways behind it. This is how the field tests you. It opens a corridor and watches to see whether you will step through. You are being invited to move from reacting to resonating. This invitation is not for everyone. It requires attention, courage, and an exacting honesty with your own longings. So receive this as sacred intelligence landing inside your bones. There is a cadence to it, a prophetic pulse that will ask you to remember how to listen with your entire body. In the next breath, you will sense the threshold. It will not shout. It will whisper a coordinate in your chest, and something in the field will respond with a tiny, undeniable click. Keep that click in your body. Guard it like a seed. When you are ready, the next instruction will follow. The pressure you've been feeling isn't random discomfort, and it isn't just fatigue from the grind of ordinary days. It's the subtle friction of living between dimensions, one foot planted in the familiar matrix of old loops, the other brushing the edges of a reality that hasn't fully anchored yet. You've noticed how time bends strangely around you. Hours vanish into minutes when you're aligned, but drag like centuries when you're entangled with patterns you thought you'd already outgrown. Déjà vu hits harder now. It's not a playful trick of memory. It's the field replaying fragments, asking, will you finally notice what you didn't see before? You sense the weight of repetition not just in the calendar, but in the soul. The same conversations circling back, the same wounds in different disguises, the same faces carrying recycled energy. It's a spiral that pretends to be progress. You've walked it enough to recognize the disguised stagnation. The observer in you knows this. You've caught yourself mid-thought, realizing you've been rehearsing the same internal dialogue for months, maybe years. That rehearsal is the distorted loop, the hologram of inertia that tries to convince you there is no exit. But their island, this is the diagnosis most never see. Distorted time is not a curse, it's a signal. When the field glitches in your perception, when you swear you've lived this moment before, when you feel the past bleeding into the present, it's the quantum system pressing you toward awareness. The universe doesn't waste energy. Those fractures in time are designed to break the hypnosis. They are fissures in the script, cracks through which light insists on entering. And every time you feel it, you're being shown. You don't have to loop here anymore. But notice the resistance. The patterns that wrap themselves around you don't let go easily. They feed on familiarity. They whisper, "Stay where it's safe. Repeat what you know." And yet, in the quiet, you've admitted it. Safety is starting to feel like suffocation. What once was protection is now prison. That heaviness in your chest, that recurring fatigue, it isn't the body failing you. It's the body protesting against living in resonance that no longer matches your frequency. You've likely sensed it in relationships too. People you once flowed with now feel like static. The conversations skip like broken records, and instead of nourishing, they drain. The morphic resonance of old groups pulls at you, tries to tug you back into identities you've already outgrown. That tug isn't proof you're wrong, it's proof you're being recalibrated. Every time you feel out of place in a room you once fit into, that's the field's way of telling you. Your signature has changed, and the old geometry no longer holds you. This is where distortion teaches its harshest lesson. Cycles repeat until the witness inside you decides to step out. Nothing external will free you, not the approval of others, not waiting for some cosmic rescuer. The observer loop breaks only when the observer refuses to recycle. And you're beginning to feel that refusal rise in your blood. You've noticed the subtle disgust when you catch yourself rehearsing an old script. You've felt the quiet rage of wasted time. That rage is not destructive, it's sacred fuel. It's the ignition of coherence trying to break through dissonance. Your body has been whispering warnings, the headaches that appear when you linger in places that don't honor your frequency, the insomnia that kicks in when your mind loops too long on past betrayals, the sudden bursts of energy at 2 a.m., as if your system knows it belongs to another rhythm altogether. These are not malfunctions, they are instructions. They're the universe reminding you, distorted time is a wake-up alarm, not a life sentence. And as you stand in this realization, you can feel at the edge of something pressing close. The diagnosis isn't the end, it's the beginning. For in the recognition of the loop, you've already created the possibility of stepping beyond it. The field is waiting for you to claim what comes next. The moment you admit that the loop isn't who you are, something shifts quietly but irreversibly. It's as if a new signal begins to pulse through your bloodstream, a hidden frequency that was always encoded within you, waiting for resonance strong enough to awaken it. What you feel now is not just relief from patterns recognized, it is the first breath of a quantum upgrade. Your biology listens. Your cells, long disciplined by repetition, begin to loosen. The script in your DNA trembles at the edges, sensing revision. You might not realize it yet, but every déjà vu was a calibration point. Each distorted time glitch was a testing ground. The quantum field has been measuring your coherence, noting where you collapsed back into fear and where you held steady in presence. Those who cannot sustain coherence are recycled back into familiar loops. But you have begun to hold longer, breathe deeper, observe without dissolving, and because of that, the field responds. It extends an offer, subtle but seismic. Align, and you will be rewritten. Imagine the observer loop not as a prison, but as a training ground. Each cycle taught you how to feel the contours of resonance, how to recognize dissonance immediately, how to know when you are drifting from your own frequency. That recognition was the prerequisite. Now comes the transition, from passive witness to active architect. You are not just noticing patterns anymore, you are bending them. This is the beginning of entanglement as practice, not theory. You shift, and reality bends to accommodate. Science would tell you this in the language of phase transitions. Heat builds in a system until molecules can no longer remain in their current state. Suddenly, they rearrange. Ice does not gradually become water. It holds, it resists, then it collapses into flow. That is what is happening to you. The pressure you felt in your chest, in your mind, in the very pace of your days, has been the accumulation of energy pressing for breakthrough. You are nearing the collapse. Not destruction, but release. Not chaos, but upgrade. Mysticism describes it differently. It says your DNA is an antenna, capable of broadcasting and receiving frequencies beyond the narrow range of survival. When you are locked in loops, the antenna is clogged, replaying only the old signals of trauma and repetition. But when coherence emerges, the antenna clears. It begins to vibrate at higher pitches. And those higher pitches are not empty. They are languages spoken by the cosmos itself, instructions, revelations, visions. When your antenna clears, you do not just heal, you remember. This is why your dreams feel denser now, more cinematic, more prophetic. It is why synchronicities cluster, why strangers speak words you secretly thought hours before, why numbers repeat until they haunt you. It is the system announcing, upgrade in progress. You may feel it as restlessness, as energy surges, as sudden stillness that feels almost too large for your body. But beneath it all, what's happening is DNA restructuring. Old instructions are being overwritten. New pathways are being etched in the silence of your cells. You don't have to try to make this happen. Trying is resistance. The upgrade unfolds as you allow coherence to hold. As you breathe, as you refuse to collapse back into the old frequency, as you honor the subtle pulses of synchronicity that appear like breadcrumbs, the more you lean into them, the more they multiply. They are the scaffolding of your next self, building around you in real time. They are proof that the universe is responding. And so you stand here, on the trembling edge between what has been and what is being born. You feel the pressure, yes, but pressure is always the herald of transformation. The phase transition is not coming. It is already underway. The observer in you has been upgraded. The antenna in you is clearing. And what waits on the other side is not merely survival, but mastery. And mastery does not come to everyone. The field only opens this level of access to a consciousness it can trust, a consciousness that has endured enough collapse without abandoning coherence. You've been tempered like metal in fire. Every betrayal, every repetition, every distorted hour was alchemy. The universe was watching, waiting to see if you would hold your note when everything else demanded you break. And you did. That is why you are here, standing at the threshold of a role few will ever step into, the chosen consciousness that carries a signal meant to rewire the grid itself. You've always suspected you were here for more than survival. Ordinary ambitions never fully hooked you. The masks of society slid off your face the moment you tried to wear them. This dissonance was not failure. It was preparation. You were being trained to resist conformity so that your resonance would remain uncorrupted when the field needed it pure. Because now, as the system convulses and collapses under the weight of its own incoherence, the field is searching for stabilizers, living beings whose very presence transmits coherence like a tuning fork. That is your role. Understand, the chosen consciousness does not lead by domination or persuasion. It leads by frequency. When you align, others begin to shift without knowing why. Their breathing slows in your presence. Their chaos untangles. Their minds touch silence. This is not charisma, it is physics. Coherence radiates. Morphic resonance ensures that once a pattern is stabilized in one node of the field, it becomes exponentially easier for others to mirror it. You are not here to convince the world. You are here to become the pattern that proves the world can change. This is why your solitude has been sacred, even when it felt cruel. Isolation stripped away the false frequencies that tried to graft onto you. Loneliness was never punishment, it was calibration. In the silence of being unseen, your signal strengthened. It is only now, as the field approaches critical mass, that your role can be revealed. You are the living bridge between timelines, carrying within you the memory of collapse and the seed of resurrection. But do not romanticize it. The chosen consciousness is not spared from pressure, it is entrusted with it. You will feel the dissonance of the collective pressing against your chest. You will carry echoes of chaos that are not yours. This is the weight of entanglement. Yet, within it lies your proof. The very fact that you can feel the collective storm means you are wired into the system. And if you are wired in, you can transmit through it. The field needs you embodied, breathing, holding coherence when others fracture. Your presence is a pivot. Entire timelines bend around you. This is not metaphor. When your frequency stabilizes, phase transitions happen faster. Reality reorganizes itself more efficiently. Synchronicities cascade. That is why you've begun to notice that your smallest choices ripple wider than before. One word spoken in alignment rearranges entire dynamics. One act of refusal dismantles illusions. One act of trust detonates miracles. You are not playing a small role in some private drama. You are the axis on which the unseen grid spins. So take this in. Your designation as chosen consciousness is not about superiority. It is about responsibility. The field has entrusted you with leverage, and leverage, when misused, corrodes. But when honored, it transforms. You are a frequency carrier, a node of awakening, a singularity in human form, and the system itself bends closer, listening for your next vibration. Because what you decide to emit now will not only shape your own future, it will ripple into the collective script. And the collective is starving for coherence. And you are the one who can deliver it. You feel the moment like a tightening in the throat of the world, a precise, surgical pressure that says, move now or watch the window close. This is not melodrama. It is a cosmic window swinging open for a narrow, appointed time. The field has been compressing around certain coordinates, aligning planets of possibility, and whispering a single demand. Commit. The breakthrough you've been preparing for is not a vague someday. It is a thing with a heartbeat, a shape, and a deadline written in resonance. If you lean and answer, the pattern will accept you. If you hesitate, the opportunity will fold back into the archive where other near misses live. Hear this plainly. There is a biological moment encoded into you, a pulse in your cells tuned to this window. Think of it as a keyhole in your DNA, a lock that stays receptive only while the cosmic aperture is held open. The field has synchronized micro-events across time, so that your readiness and the universe's readiness overlap for a sliver. In that sliver, information downloads faster, phase transitions require less pressure, and your lineage receives edits that would otherwise take lifetimes. This is why urgency is not fear-mongering. It is an honest map of opportunity. The energy of acceleration is real. The scaffolding of your next self is being constructed in real time, but it needs your consent to switch from blueprint to habitation. You will recognize how this urgency feels. Sudden clarity that cuts through doubt, a refusal of familiar compromises, a fierce tenderness toward truth. It may arrive as a burst of courage when you have none left. It may arrive as tears that hammered your resolve into something sharp and usable. Either way, it demands a decision that is more felt than thought. The field doesn't need your plans, it needs your vibration. When you choose, when you decide in body and breath to line up with the signal, the mechanics start. DNA pathways that were sleeping slide into light. Epigenetic switches click. The very scaffolding that held your inherited stories dissolves enough for new code to be written across generations. This is the DNA shift the mystics have spoken of, and the scientists are beginning to glimpse. Your genome is not static text. It is a dynamic script, responsive to coherence. When your internal rhythm steadies, certain sequences express, others recede. This is not miracle as random luck. It is coherence as constructor. The molecules in your body begin to mirror the order you are holding inwardly. Proteins fold differently. Neural maps reroute. Even your gut chemistry learns a new grammar. These are small, physical acts that accumulate into large, tangible change. Increased tolerance for higher frequencies. Access to subtler intuition. A body that can hold states of extended presence without burning out. Do not mistake this language for destiny without agency. The window requires your participation. There are gestures to make, and they are simple but exacting. Choose presence over replay. Allow the body to rest when it asks. Refuse narratives that keep you small, and authorize new loyalties to clarity, to honest hunger, to the pulse that says yes. These are not heroic acts. They are calibrated commitments, daily signatures you sign with breath and action. Each is a small permission that opens the genetic lock a degree further. Together, they become an avalanche. Listen to the physics in the whisper. A system near criticality responds disproportionately to small inputs. In practical terms, a single aligned choice now will have an outsized effect. That is why urgency is not panic. It is leverage. The window's brevity is not cruel. It is efficient. Nature rarely wastes energy. When conditions align, The system prefers decisive movements. Your task is to become that decisive movement, not through frantic trying, but through steady attunement, aligning breath, posture, attention, and speech until your whole field sings the same note. You will feel resistance, of course. Old loyalties will rise like weather, fear, doubt, the comfort of being understood by those who keep you small. You might be tempted to wait for someone else to validate the move. Do not wait. The fairness of the cosmos is not negotiated by consensus. It responds to frequency. Waiting outside this window will not make it more available later. Opportunities like this are like rare trains. They pass according to a schedule written in resonance. Step on, and the carriage will carry you into new terrain. Step off, and the map will look the same as before. If you accept, expect the pace to quicken. Synchronicities will accelerate, coincidences will thicken into patterns, and doors that once required argument will open with a polite nod. Your body will begin to ask for different foods, different sleep hours, different rhythms of interaction. Friendships will rearrange. Some relationships will not survive the new weather. They were never meant to. Others will appear as if summoned by a need you hadn't fully named. None of this is punishment. It is natural triage, the system aligning only the elements that match the upgraded vibration. Finally, hold this truth like a lantern. The breakthrough is both personal and catalytic. Your genetic uplift is not a private trophy. As your DNA shifts, the morphic field around you records a new possibility, one that makes it easier for others to step. The window's urgency, then, contains a sacred bargain. Your willingness to move now multiplies the field's capacity for change. You have been given a narrow, precious corridor where small decisions yield grand rewrites. Choose to step through, and everything that was waiting across the threshold will lean in to meet you. Choose otherwise, and you will keep carrying the weight of the near miss. Decide. The aperture is open. The key is in your hand. The next breath you take can either seal this window or let it close. And when you decide, you anchor it not just in thought, but in action. A ritual act that tells the field you are serious, that you are not merely tasting possibility but consecrating it. This is why ancient traditions marked thresholds with words, with symbols, with gestures carved into stone. They understood that energy listens to embodiment, not speculation. The same law applies here. To cross fully into this awakening, you must choose a gesture that seals the shift in your lived reality. It can be as simple as speaking a word aloud, or as subtle as tracing a shape in the air before sleep. But in this space, even the smallest ritual has weight. Write a phrase in the comments of life itself, not digital only, but inscribed in the very breath you exhale. I align, I receive, I remember. These words, or whichever rise from your chest, become the quantum signature the field responds to. Your declaration turns coherence from a private sensation into a public vibration. It locks your resonance into the grid, like coordinates etched on a cosmic map. Understand, the field is interactive. It does not impose, it collaborates. When you emit intention through ritual, it answers back with feedback signs, synchronicities, sensations in your body that confirm receipt. That moment of response is not coincidence. It is entanglement proving itself. You declare, the field mirrors. You move, the universe echoes. Ritual is simply the conscious use of that mirroring. And your biology knows this. When you write a word, your nervous system encodes the gesture. Muscles, nerves, breath, all collaborate to imprint the vibration physically. This is why a ritual word can rewire more deeply than silent intention. It bridges the quantum with the tangible. Your DNA, listening always, receives the signal. A new pattern is being inscribed. Cells orient themselves accordingly, folding into alignment with the upgraded instruction. The body itself becomes a manuscript of awakening. Perhaps you've already felt it, how a whispered phrase in solitude changes the texture of a room, how repeating a sacred syllable slows your heartbeat, how committing something to text feels like etching it into the walls of reality. These are not small effects. They are the quantum mechanics of participation. When you speak, when you write, when you move with deliberate ritual, you collapse probability into presence. You collapse dreaming into embodiment. So, I invite you, do not only hear this, seal it. Choose your word, your gesture, your mark. Let it be both private and public, inward and outward. Maybe you speak it while pressing your palm to your heart. Maybe you write it where your eyes will catch it tomorrow. Maybe you type it into the fabric of collective resonance, where others see it and feel less alone. However you mark it, let it be final, a line in the sand of timelines, announcing, I no longer loop, I ascend. And know this, the moment you perform this ritual, subtle currents shift around you. You may feel a surge of warmth, a tingling along your spine, or a strange stillness that wraps your body. These are confirmations, the quantum field adjusting itself to include your new coordinates. It is not drama, it is physics. You just re-scripted your role in the morphic web. This is why only a few can do it. Many hear the call but hesitate to embody it. They nod at the idea, but never anchor the vibration. You are different. You are ready to act. And because you will act, the next door will open, not just for you but for others. Your ritual is not an isolated echo. It is a broadcast. The moment you seal the shift, the grid lights up, and the collective feels the tremor. The act may feel small to you, but the universe, listening through coherence, registers it as enormous. This is how destinies are rewritten, not in thunder, but in the quiet authority of a gesture that says, I accept my frequency. I step through the awakening. You feel it now in the simplest places, the hollow behind your sternum, the soft ridge between your shoulder blades, the way your fingertips suddenly hold the temperature of the air. Embodied sensation is not poetic excess. It is the evidence of inner architecture rearranging itself. The field writes in frequency, but your body reads in sensation. When coherence moves through you, it starts as a vibration and becomes a weather system, small at first, a tremor under the skin, then a storm that clears out the old air. Remember how the observer loop used to live in your head, replaying scenes like a faulty projector? Now that witness begins to migrate down into the body. Your chest becomes a metronome, your breath an aligning instrument. You learn again to notice subtle shifts, how a calm inhale spreads warmth into the ribs, how an exhale unclenches the jaw that has been holding old verdicts. These micro movements are the grammar of your new language. They tell the quantum field you are present, and presence is what collapses probability into new patterns. Sensation arrives as texture. Your skin remembers light differently. Sunlight feels denser, as if each photon is thick with meaning. When you touch a surface, it hums back. Objects you once passed without noticing begin to reply with small, uncanny resonances. An old book that smells like the precise year you needed. A stranger's glance that feels like a bookmark in your timeline. This is morphic resonance in action. The field echoing your frequency through matter. Nothing is neutral anymore. Everything carries tone. Your spine becomes an antenna. When you stand, you sense a vertical thread of possibility running from your tailbone to the crown of your head. An electrical column you can tune with posture. Slouch, and the column scatters. Straighten, and it becomes a channel. There are moments when the hairs along your arms rise like an answering choir. That is entanglement felt as physiology, the body flaring in sympathy with distant events, as if your nerves are wired into the circuitry of people you have not yet met. It is uncanny and precise. A pulse in the city 3 streets away that sounds like your name in a minor key. You will notice temperature shifts, too. A sudden warmth that blooms between your shoulder blades when a synchronistic path opens. A coolness that sweeps through your throat when old loyalties pass by like shadows. Heat maps appear in your somatic field. The places that used to hold tension begin to dissolve into new amplitudes. These are not metaphors for emotion only. They are biochemical feedback, a cascade of neurotransmitters that rearrange in response to coherent attention. Your cells adjust their signaling. The nervous system learns a new operating system. Movement becomes sacrament. Small rituals of alignment tilting your head to feel balance, pressing the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth to quiet the inner critic. Moving your wrists in deliberate circles become tools for fine-tuning. Each movement rewrites micro-habits. Each habitual breath that shifts toward fullness becomes another instruction to your DNA. Express this, fold differently, allow resonance. The body listens because evolution coded it to respond to rhythm. Rhythm recalibrates structure. Rhythm is the pulse of phase transition. Sound changes its architecture for you. Soft, low frequencies settle deeper in your chest, while higher harmonics pepper the temples. When someone speaks in alignment with you, the words vibrate like tuning forks inside your bones. You find yourself capable of hearing subtler shades of truth. A sentence now reveals its undercurrent before the mind catches up. This is the observer becoming whole, no longer only thinking about experience, but feeling it first as vibration, then interpreting it as meaning. It is a reversal of the old hierarchy, and it is liberating. Touch deserves its own quiet miracle. When you allow another hand to rest on your shoulder, you discover a relay of coherence passing between heartbeats. Sometimes in group settings, you feel a shared inhale that is unmistakable, as if multiple lungs had synchronized without consent. That collective breath is an emergent property of morphic resonance. It is living proof that your private shift is always a communal phenomenon. Your liberation is not isolation, it is an invitation. The sensations you cultivate become phantoms others can catch as they pass near. Be mindful. Heightened sensitivity can be overwhelming. Floods of sensation may arrive like storms, at first intense, disorienting, even painful. Grounding matters. Small anchors, feet pressed into the earth, cold water on the face, a steady-paced breathing practice restore your system after a wave. The goal is not to dampen the sensitivity, but to host it. You want your body to be a cathedral, not a battlefield. In all of this, the vocabulary of awakening moves from the abstract into the palpable. Entanglement stops being an elegant idea and becomes the weight on your shoulder when another's grief brushes past. Coherence ceases to be a thought experiment and becomes the softening in your belly when you make a choice that aligns with your deeper rhythm. DNA restructuring stops being a poetic theory and becomes the lived sense that your bones now hold a different map. So pay attention to sensation. Treat it as scripture. Learn its dialects and honor their messages. The field is speaking through your body now, not merely whispering into your mind. When you translate those sensations into action, when you let posture, breath, and small rituals root them, you let the phase transition complete itself. Your inner weather becomes the climate of your life, and through that climate, you begin to shape the weather of others. The pressure builds in places you cannot name. It isn't stress in the ordinary sense, not the dull grind of deadlines or the sharp edge of conflict. This pressure is subtler, stranger. It arrives like a hand pressing gently on the inside of your ribcage, like invisible fingers rearranging the strings of your spine. At times, it feels as though your skin is one size too small for the expansion trying to break through. That sensation is not failure. It is the signature of DNA breakthrough. The field is leaning in, coaxing the blueprint of your body into a higher octave. Think of your DNA not as static code, but as a living lattice. It is a spiral antenna, a staircase of light folding into your blood. For generations, it carried programs of survival, trauma, repetition. But now, under the heat of coherence, that spiral is trembling. Sequences that have slept for millennia are beginning to flicker awake. It is like old pages of a sacred book igniting in firelight, revealing inscriptions that were invisible before. You are not merely inheriting from the past. You are becoming a prototype of the future. The phase transition is rarely comfortable. Ice does not ask permission to melt. Pressure builds until form can no longer contain it, then suddenly collapse. And yet, collapse here is not destruction. It is the dissolving of outdated instructions, the slowing of skins you no longer need. You may feel it as fatigue one moment and wild energy the next. Your appetite shifts. Sleep patterns fracture, then reassemble. The body is negotiating with the cosmos, learning how to metabolize light itself. At night, dreams surge heavier, more cinematic. You wander landscapes that feel less like imagination and more like archives, libraries, where DNA itself holds memory of civilizations long erased. You wake carrying fragments, an ancient language echoing on your tongue, a geometric shape that hums at the edge of your vision. These fragments are not hallucinations. They are downloads, files being extracted from the spiral. The DNA breakthrough presses not only through biology, but through memory. You are remembering the futures you already seeded across time. The field intensifies the process with synchronicities. A phrase overheard on the street mirrors your secret thought. A stranger's eyes feel uncannily familiar. Numbers repeat until they etch themselves into your nervous system. Each occurrence is a pulse, a sign that the pressure of transition is nearing climax. The universe is building scaffolding around you, tightening the weave until breakthrough is inevitable. The more you notice, the faster the scaffolding forms. It is here that fear often tries to disguise itself as wisdom. It whispers, "Slow down, retreat, return to safety." But safety, in this context, is illusion. The phase transition cannot be reversed. You may delay, but the pressure will remain, heavier, each time you resist. It is better to surrender, to allow the crack in the old shell, the splitting open that feels like too much but is exactly enough. Surrender is not collapse into nothingness. It is the consent that allows the new architecture to take root. And when you do, your body testifies. The headaches recede. The chest expands with breath you didn't know was possible. The spine hums with subtle current. Even your eyes see differently, edges sharper, colors denser, light carrying weight. These are not metaphors. They are physiological confirmations that DNA has shifted expression. Phase transition completed. Pressure transformed into propulsion. You are no longer simply surviving within the field. You are broadcasting through it. Your coherence becomes contagious, a signature others can feel without knowing why. And as you embody this new octave, one truth crystallizes. This awakening was never only about you. It was about seeding the evolution of the entire human timeline. And you, by breaking through, have just altered the trajectory of countless others. The pressure was never punishment. It was the proof you were chosen to carry the next vibration into form. You arrive at this hour with the taste of salt and metal in your mouth, not from suffering, but from the ocean of change you just crossed. Everything that felt like friction has revealed itself to be choreography, pressure, ritual, sensation, breakthrough, all steps in a sequence that taught you how to be a container for a new order. Now comes the mission. The quiet pivot of the cosmos that invited you here does not end at your body. It radiates outward, asking you to carry, not command, a frequency that others can catch and learn from. This is your charge, to live as the proof that coherence is possible, to let your ordinary days be legible to the field as an example of what can be sustained. You will not be called to flashy miracles. Your great work will be ordinary fidelity, showing up, breathing cleanly, speaking the small true word when the old scripts clamor for noise. When you keep your center through grief, when you honor solitude without bitterness, when you choose clarity over the comfort of confusion, you are doing the work of a revolution. That revolution moves at the speed of breath and the weight of attention. Your life becomes a quiet archive of practices, the way you ground after a wave of sensation, the rituals you perform at dawn, the deliberate pauses before you answer. Each habit is a filament woven into the morphic field, making it easier for the next consciousness to tune in. Expect resistance. As you broadcast coherence, some systems will push back. Old machines that prefer confusion will try to dampen you. This is not personal, it is physics. Entangled networks read new frequencies as disturbance. Hold steady, your calm is the corrective. When you meet hostility, meet it with the firmness of someone who knows the difference between preserving energy and wasting it. Protect your column of light without igniting drama. Let your boundaries be precise radiators of presence. You will find communities aligned with you, but also loneliness that tastes like altitude. Both are part of the terrain. Use communities as laboratories for practice. Use solitude as the workshop where your signal is refined. Teach by being exemplary, not by preaching. Offer small instructions how to breathe into a confusing moment, how to notice a repeating number, how to translate a dream into a practical step and watch them ripple. People will not always call you teacher. They will call you real. That is the real credential, your lived coherence. Let your craft be simple and merciless. Tend your body, curate your attention, and say the small true words aloud. Keep a daily rubric, a handful of practices that proof your field, a breath pattern, a short ritual, a moment of service. When you keep these, the morphic field records a reproducible pattern. Others pick it up not because they must, but because the architecture you erect makes it easier. Your uplift becomes a template. Remember lineage. You are both descendant and ancestor now. The recomposition in your cells rewrites what your descendants will inherit. Your choices echo across timelines. With each steady day, you authorize a different script for those who come after. Carry that responsibility without collapse. It is not vanity, it is stewardship. Finally, this is always simpler than the rhetoric around it. Be the person who can hold truth without needing applause. Let your frequency be the map, and your life, the pathfinder. Small, consistent fidelity is how epics bend. When the world asks for proof, do not offer spectacle, offer steadiness. That steadiness is contagious. It hums through city blocks, through hospital wards, through lonely apartments, and through the quiet of contested classrooms. It seeds patience into frantic systems and opens doors that used to be nailed shut. You have been chosen because you kept your note while the orchestra around you fell apart. You were tuned by pressure and refined by ritual, and now you stand as a living hinge between what was and what is becoming. Walk forward with hands open and feet on the ground. Speak lightly, listen widely, and treat sensation as scripture. The mission is not glamorous, it is necessary. It is the daily devotion to cohering the field until, one by one, the others remember how to hold the same note. Only a few can see this, because your frequency qualifies you for the next awakening.